Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Minibus drivers are responding to accusations that they are not complying with COVID-19 protocols. Some of them openly admit to some of these claims, but they say there are reasons for their actions. Jacques Wooding reports.
I haven't encountered any difficulty with the protocols. The only thing I'll say, the reason why for the mask is for us to protect the other people. That's the purpose of the mask, because of the COVID-19, that we do not want the germs, that if in case you sneeze, so that you're going to travel. So that's why they have the distancing of the 6 feet. You understand? So the mask is more to protect other people. It's not that it is difficult, because it's true we don't really have the 6 feet, we have almost 3 feet apart, but according to the amount of passengers that we have, we are more able to control it, because the two on the seat, so it's easier for us to control it.
I never had any difficulty with passengers boarding the bus without a mask, because right now, like I say, the driver have to try and protect himself. If the passenger don't want to wear a mask, you cannot force the passenger to wear a mask, because some passengers already have health problems, like I said. Because some people cannot breathe without a mask, not with the mask. They will be able to breathe properly. So I never had no difficulty with that. Once I myself protect myself, that's up to them. On that same 6 feet, they ask you to stay away. Like I said, 6 feet, there's no 6 feet in the buses. Somebody sitting there, somebody just like a foot and a half away from the other person, there's no 6 feet. They could as well have no buses working, or have the buses working full time. Just have them working, have them have their full load, because there's no 6 feet. A passenger sitting straight behind the driver, that's not 6 feet. One sitting next to each other there, that's not 6 feet. So I never had no problem with nobody.
On my part, no. I haven't encountered none of them. No. The passengers in Cicerone, they have been behaving themselves good. They have been cooperating very good.
I haven't really experienced too much difficulties in protocol, because I allow people to be themselves. Because number one, when you have the mask on your face, you can't really breathe. Number one, you're not breathing oxygen, you're breathing in carbon dioxide, because when you're like that, you're breathing in back of your head. So it's not really, I would say,
it's a health hazard.
It's like a health hazard, you understand? So when people come in the buses, I tell them, they have to put on a mask and stuff like that. But as soon as I finish drop everybody to the destination, I take off my mask to one time. I not keep my mask.
On Tuesday, it was announced that Jamaica will not accept the decision of its regional counterparts for holding the CXC-CSEC exams in July. Here in St. Lucia, it has been proposed that Form 5 students return to classrooms in preparation for these exams. This move has raised a myriad of questions, not only from teachers and parents and members of the public, but also from Senator and former Principal Gibeon Ferdinand. Opposition Senator and former Principal Gibeon Ferdinand is asking for the Ministry of Education to make clear to the public St. Lucia's response or position on the administration of CSEC examinations in July, coming out of a recent regional meeting. Following that regional meeting, countries like Jamaica and Barbados have opposed the sitting of CSEC exams in July.
Yeah, there seem to be varied positions from regional governments on the situations regarding the CXC examinations, administering of the CXC examinations in July. We've heard concerns expressed by Trinidad, Barbados, and recently Jamaica. I think after this meeting that was held on Friday with ministers of education from the region, Jamaica made its position very clear that it doesn't think it's prepared to have the exam administered in July. Now, what is St. Lucia's position in that regard?
Ferdinand says at this point there is a lot more uncertainty in both the minds of teachers and students, as proper protocols have not been established if a phased reopening of school for Form 5s and Grade 6 students should really come into effect. On the overall phased reopening plan, the St. Lucia Teachers Union issued a 25 comprehensive response to the ministry's proposal. The questions cover a range of issues, including the personal safety of teachers and students.
Our own local St. Lucia Teachers Union has also had several questions that they raise and concerns about the announcement since the Ministry of Education made an announcement about the partial reopening of school. I think it's from June 2nd for grade 6 and Form 5.
The former educator is asking that all stakeholders be properly engaged by the Ministry of Education. He's also calling for a clear position to be taken on how students and teachers move forward with preparations for both local and regional examinations. A water-related emergency is in effect for St. Lucia, with the resumption of economic activities and the proposed reopening of the tourism and education sectors. The Water Resource Management Agency has appealed to all members of the public to adhere to the restrictions outlined by WASCO to ensure that there is enough water to manage. Director of the Water Resource Management Agency, Jason Ernest, has indicated that the current water situation in St. Lucia is an issue of supply versus demand, given that the country is facing a drought and has not had significant or moderate rainfall. Ernest says the new prohibitions on water will help decrease the outflow of water from the John Compton Dam as well as Wasco's catchment areas. This is in order to ensure the country's water supply is stretched until the resources can be replenished during the rainy season. Program Development Officer for NEMO, Andrew George, indicated that conservation has to take place on all fronts, so when the industries that use the most water reopen, there can be some semblance of balance in the distribution of water.
If there is a silver lining to this thing is that the persons who use the most water, the industries and the institutions that use the most water, which are the hotels and the schools, are closed for now. Those large users of water will then reopen, and we have the hotels with the pools and the number of rooms and so all of that. So that will then add to the stress of the number of persons using the water. If you have the schools reopening, then that again puts more stress on the scarce resource. So the system has to figure out, okay, how do we make sure that we divide what we have equally among everybody? And so we're saying, okay, we don't have to now start conserving water. Also, Mr. Ernest talks about it, we need to encourage people to do more water storage.
Ernest says efforts are being undertaken to ensure that all sectors on island receive water to meet daily basic needs. He says the only way that can be continued is if all members of the public adhere to the stipulations in the Water Emergency Act. He says alternatives to just using water from the pipes must be sought by the general public as well as the agricultural sector.
The alternative is using water from our tributaries, the streams and the rivers, but those would have to be downstream. From the Wasco intakes. Now, most of our farming activity is actually downstream of the Wasco intakes. We also look at rainwater harvesting as an alternative, and it's not only for farming but also for on a residential level as well, because like I mentioned, even in the dry season that rain falls and a household can capture significant water. Even on a catchment level, it may not make a significant difference, but on a household level, persons can capture enough water that they can use it to carry out some of the daily needs.
He is urging members of the public and businesses to invest in water tanks as well as other water storage mechanisms to lessen the dependence on potable water. Although the newly refurbished Castries Market can hold 100 produce vendors at full capacity, each individual takes up considerably less space as compared to the previous arrangements. Farmers claim that this has resulted in a significant decrease in their sales because of the facility's restrictions. The farmers say they are now more than 50% below previous sale targets, and with street-side sales no longer allowed, they worry about their future.
Farmers who supply produce vendors at the Castries Market claim their sales have been adversely affected by the new facilities available at the site, as well as the accompanying produce restrictions. With vendors now selling from stalls instead of trays, a certain capacity must be observed when stocking up. Farmers in many cases say this is much less than what vendors would usually purchase from them to resell. One impacted farmer, David Jabaptist, explained the conundrum.
A lot of farmers are being affected now with the slow process of being in here. and off the streets. We are not on the streets no more. Well, with being on the streets, we could get in a large scales of quantity from them, a large stock, right? But not being in there and here, which we cannot have too much of nothing. Some of the farmers right now, they are suffering for that. I would get in 6 bags of dashing or 10 bananas. Right now, I only might have to get about 2 and maybe one dashing. So the farmers that used to supply that and they used to survive and live good off of that. What become of them right now with the balance of what they have?
Jean-Baptiste added that with hotels still closed, the already limited avenues for farmers to sell their perishable products are further diminished by a decline in vendor purchases. Another irate farmer, Martin Fates, expressed his frustration with the ban on roadside sales.
That condition of that marketplace, which I don't have places for everybody to come together and sell, is very effectively. Because it's not the first place around the world you can see there's farmers all over trying to do something. But when you can find so much of farmers together in one place and with the same thing, it's very effectively for each and every one. So that's what that really affected me this morning. Because I was on the street opposite Rikai there, on the high street there, I wasn't affecting nobody. And that was better for me a lot. And for seeing myself in that situation here today, I can't make a bread. I can't pay my debt over that. I can't pay the cost. And it's very expensive and it's very tight on me.
The farmers are calling on the CCC to address their grievances and determine a way forward. Jacko Whitting, Hot 7 News.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Stay with us. There's more news coming up after the break.